working on. So hello everyone, my name is Tuukka Häkkinen, and my topic for the day is the anatomy of a successful e-commerce store. But first, a little bit of information about myself. So I work as a product design manager at Nosto, where I'm in charge of the product design and the user experience of the product. As a product design manager, I manage a guild of designers and front-end developers who sit within cross-functional agile product teams. Big part of my team is here today, I think. Hi, guys. I've been at the company for over 5 years now. So basically, I'm one of the original members of the team. Not a founder, though, but been there since the get-go. And I've seen the company grow from a tiny, tiny early-stage startup into a global e-commerce product company. Personally, I've been working in the industry for well over a decade now, and I have a background in interaction design, UI design, and front-end development. So what does Nosto do? That is the official pitch. But personally, I just prefer to mention that I work in a pretty cool product company that builds tools for online retailers to improve their customer experience and business with a heavy focus on design and ease of use. And how we do it in practice, at the moment our product portfolio consists of personalized Facebook ads, personalized on-site product recommendations for personalization across the online store. We can do behavioral pop-ups for intelligent promotions and lead capture, personalized emails as well, both triggered messaging and newsletter personalization. And of course, we also offer analytics for validating the performance of our offering and actionable insight about the store performance. The company is based in Helsinki, founded in 2011. And after a while in stealth mode, the product was publicly launched in September 2013. And since then, we've seen some really incredible growth. And today, we're a team of over 100 people from over 25 different nationalities. And in addition to the Helsinki headquarters, we have offices in London, Berlin, Stockholm, New York, and we just very recently opened an office in Santa Monica, Los Angeles, which we're really, really excited about, of course. And when it comes to e-commerce, Nosto is the fastest growing personalization solution in the world. So with this in mind, let's take a quick look at what our industry insight is based on. So what do we really know about e-commerce? Well, first of all, the company was founded by ex-retailers and e-commerce professionals. So still now, after 5 years, this insight is still very important when it comes to the direction of the company and product vision. But today, we also have well over 25,000 online stores from over 150 countries globally sign up to use the service. So that is quite a lot of data that we process on a daily basis through our platform. We partner with some of the most popular e-commerce platforms in our target market, Magento, Shopify, Shopify Plus, PrestaShop, Shopware, BigCommerce, but we're also very close with a lot of different platforms in addition to those. We have a very broad network of agency and technical solution partners who basically provide us out with a lot of valuable insight across different markets. We also provide a lot of interesting brand both local and global who are using the service. And one of the most recent developments is that we have a very interesting partner to provide our customers tools on Facebook and Instagram. And out of these two, I think the Facebook marketing partner badge is already official, and the Instagram partner badge is just pending some paperwork or something like that. So soon come. So on to my actual talk, the anatomy of a successful e-commerce store. Now, based on data, research, and our industry insight, what does a well-performing online store look like? So one of the problems in trying to be data-driven is that even when you have access to a lot of data, there's so many different ways to look at it. Typically, one might approach it by starting to look at user segmentation. So looking at your customer base based on personal attributes like whether they're male or female, maybe something around geolocation. Or maybe you want to look at customer life cycle, so the stages from a new visitor to a repeat buyer to a loyal customer. Maybe the buyer's journey, maybe the purchase funnel, technology, desktop versus mobile, or channels, or omnichannel, paid versus organic, etc. There's just so many different dimensions that it's kind of hard to keep focus. And since everything's connected to everything else, it's kind of difficult to isolate these dimensions. So in my opinion, it's just easier to consider these as lenses through which to look at the data while making decisions. In order to keep things practical, I decided to approach this talk by breaking down a typical online store by page types. So I'll basically just walk you through the different pages in order of a typical customer journey. And while doing that, I'll try to present some actionable data and research-driven tips on how to improve each page. So let's get started and look at the very first page in a typical customer journey, the home page. Your digital storefront is your shop window and one of the most important pages on your site. It's your big chance to entice someone to enter, browse, and ultimately make a purchase. So how do you make it appealing? And I've gathered some pointers here. You want to showcase yourself. The first harsh reality, though, is that you only have 3 seconds to make the first impression. According to studies, the average online shopper takes just 3 seconds to decide whether or not to progress further than the homepage. So you need to make that first impression really count. And how do you do that? Well, optimizing the page speed is a good start, and also making very apparent to the landing user what it is that you're selling. You should aim to showcase your catalog as well as possible. If you're in doubt, there's a pretty good rule of thumb to make sure that there's at least around 30 to 40% of your product inventory that is represented on the homepage. This is based on research by Baymard Institute, that this is approximately the amount of product coverage needed for shoppers to easily identify what the company sells. With the exception of mega brands like Nike or Apple, where this might not be necessary, but in your average online store, it probably makes a lot of sense. Research also indicates that while mobile conversions are on the rise, it's not really the whole story. So according to studies, the majority of mobile users are actually in a discovery phase of the customer journey, so they're not really ready to buy immediately. And this basically means that if you try to force them to do so, you might be hurting your conversion both on desktop and in-store. So understanding the customer lifecycle stages across, as well as cross-device and cross-channel fluidity is kind of important for being able to serve the most relevant content for your customers. And there's also a pretty classical study by the e-tailing group that found that there's a massive amount of shoppers who are mainly just looking for discounted items. So you really want to make sure that you showcase your sales campaigns prominently on your homepage. And also that if you have a separate sales section in your store, you need to make sure that it can be easily found, preferably in the main navigation. And of course, there's been a lot of talk about personalization. I'm not going to deep dive into that. Other people have already done that. But it would be a sin to not mention it at all since I'm here. So here's a few quick examples on the ways you can personalize the homepage and make it more relevant for your customers. For instance, seasonal bestsellers and freshly stocked items are really good for showcasing to the new visitors with no prior browsing history. So here you're basically utilizing the kind of crowd logic, the collaborative filtering to show the most relevant products to people who don't have much data on. If you do know something about the landing customer, it's better to offer them something more relevant in form of a personalized recommendation. So the more you know, the more relevant you can get. And if they do have previous browsing history on the store, but they haven't yet converted, it's usually a good idea to give them a gentle reminder on what were the products they were previously browsing. That way they can basically hop right back to the original customer journey. So make sure you showcase the most prominent categories on the main navigation to optimize for glanceability, ease of access, and it's also good for SEO. And if possible, if you have the technical capability, it's also a good idea to sort the menu items to reflect the customer's personal profile. When appropriate and necessary, list the subcategories as well. And there are also research findings that are based on classical psychology papers that suggest that it might be optimal to limit the amount of main categories to 7. This limit would also bring good positive SEO implications. In reality, I'm not saying that this is always something you can do, especially if you're a bigger retailer. But it's just good to know that if you go above the limit, there might be trade-offs. And make sure you choose the names of your categories wisely, as they have a huge implication on multiple factors such as well, ease of use, accessibility, and SEO. So the next page type, the category page. The category pages are typically just product listings that are filtered based on an attribute. And a very typical pattern here is to just show a long list of products under which you show an element for pagination. But this can be a very unfriendly way to provide information to the user. So at the very least, what you should do is allow the list to be sorted by the most common attributes like price and popularity. And if you're a really savvy retailer, you will also sort the product list by default based on the personal preferences of the customer, basically sidestepping the whole need for pagination almost completely. Filtering and faceting are useful tools for improving product discovery and empowering the user to control product listing. But you shouldn't treat the filter options as just something static. You can also adapt these based on customer preferences. And you can also include seasonal additions and variations like products for summer holiday or Christmas products, etc. And here's a good practical tip for sites using lazy loading. So if you just load more products as the user scrolls down, that can be considered an anti-pattern. Everyone who's kind of tried to reach the footer while scrolling down probably agrees. So while lazy loading promotes discovery and glanceability, it does so at the expense of engagement. So the better approach is to limit the amount of lazy loaded products and add a call to action for loading more products when the user actually wants and needs them. Next up, search. It's quite a broad topic, so I won't dig too deep into it. But here's a few quick notes about on-site search. So according to studies, people who search for products are 3 to 4 times more likely to convert. And obviously, if you're a big retailer with a huge catalog, the search is much more critical for your success. Might be a kind of an intuitive no-brainer, but quick search is commonly perceived as a more user-friendly approach to the typical search where you need to first type in the keyword and then you land on the search result page. And about the search result page, basically that is, again, just a regular list of products, very similar to the category page. So all the previous tips I mentioned, they also apply on the search result page. The product page, that's really the crunch time for e-commerce professionals. You have the shopper, you have them in your store, and even better, they've already caught something in their eye. So now you really need to make sure that you show the product in the best possible light. What you want to do is you do not want to underestimate the importance of the product images. So in the online environment, the customers rely very heavily on visual cues. In a report given by the president of the e-tailing group, 75% of the shoppers listed the quality of the product images as the most important feature when shopping online. And when it comes to the image quantity, showing the product from different angles is also good to show the shoppers exactly what it is that they're considering to buy. Another study by Nielsen Norman Group concluded that 20% of the time when a site visit is abandoned, it's because of unclear product information. So your aim should be to preempt any questions a potential shopper might have about a product so that they'll continue to the cart page rather than revert to Google or anywhere else where it's easy to find another retailer. And it's always better to use your own copy rather than the manufacturer's bulk copy. It has positive implications both on the customer experience and SEO. According to an analyst from Forrester Research, product recommendations are responsible for an average of 10 to 30% of e-commerce site revenue, which is pretty close to the average we've also seen at Nosto. Diving into specifics, if you highlight both alternative and supplementary products, you're basically enabling easier product discovery. But since a customer is typically still in search mode while viewing product pages, you usually prioritize the alternatives of the viewed item. The complementary products still have their place though, so why not maybe try both? And buttons. There's been a lot of discussion about buttons since pretty much forever. The basic approach is pretty clear. Make it big enough, give it enough visual contrast, and place it intuitively. But if you look at the recent trend of flat design, it's pretty obvious that people haven't been really adhering to that. But according to a recent study, the typical flat buttons do not perform very well compared to the more traditional alternatives. Cart page and checkout. There's an old classical rule of e-commerce that do not mess with the checkout funnel. It's the only place where simple usability mistakes can hurt the business in a big, big way. And the critical thing is try to not surprise the user, especially in any negative way. So first things first, the shopper wants to be sure of what it is that they're buying. So you should allow them to see everything they have selected quickly and clearly, and you should use high-quality product images. And you should also reinforce that with an outline of key details like size, the color, along with options to remove or update quantities right there in the cart. If and when you feel that you have managed to build a well-performing cart page and checkout flow, then you can try some more advanced upselling tips like, well, typically you should aim to be very subtle about upselling late in the funnel and try to avoid directing customers away from the checkout flow. But if you focus on offering very simple kind of no-brainer products with no need for choosing variations like colors and sizes, you can actually increase your AOV in a nice way. AOV meaning average order value. So display small ticket items that complement the customer, what the customer is already buying. That can be a quick win. So make sure you suggest light bulbs whenever someone is buying a lamp, or batteries whenever someone is buying toys or something like that. This not only maximizes your chances for increasing AOV, but it also provides real value to the customer by making sure that they have everything they need to enjoy their purchase. And I have one last quick win for optimization, the error pages. So the 404 page is not only a dead end for online shopper, it's a leading cause of bounce and untimely exit from e-commerce sites. And it can be caused by an endless amount of things, poor internal linking, dead links all over the internet, expired products, sold out products, you name it. But I've listed some examples on how to make the most out of your error pages and on how unfortunate most out of very interesting time interesting very interesting takes away interesting leave you with a reminder that whenever the customer engages with your store, it's an opportunity for you to improve the customer experience and the store performance. But you need to keep in mind that these are pretty generic insights drawn from research and data across a lot of different stores. And there's a lot of variation between stores across different markets, vertical, etc. So make sure you really focus on understanding what works for your store specifically. And of course, if there are online retailers present, we can also help. And that concludes my talk. I have 2 final comments. So many of the insights here in the keynote, they are presented in one of our ebooks that can be downloaded using that link. I apologize, the landing page has a lead capture form. I couldn't figure out a quick way to get the direct download, but you can still access it. And yeah, we're growing fast, we're hiring. We're actually currently opening a new position for a product designer in our product team. So if you're interested, feel free to reach out to me directly via tuukka@nosto.com. And later on this week or early next week, you should also find the position available on our site. Thank you.